What's your favorite cartoon or animation? Depending on what area you grew up in, do you like Looney Tunes, Flintstones, or Winnie the Pooh? Can you take those ideas and turn them into a billion-dollar business? I'm going to introduce you to a man named Walt. Born at the turn of the 20th century in Chicago, 1901 to be exact, Walt was born the fourth child out of five to Flora Carl Disney and Elias Disney. Walt found interest in drawing when he was asked and paid by his neighbor to draw a cartoon of his horse. Walt also participated in his high school newspaper, drawing political cartoons. Walt also attended the Kansas City Art Institute, and later he attended the Chicago Art Institute. Walt dropped out of school when he was 16. He forged his birth certificate so he could enlist in the military, but the military rejected him, so he enlisted in the Red Cross to drive an ambulance in France. He also drew cartoons on that ambulance. Walt also had a passion for trains. Walt said that his railroad career was brief, exciting, and unprofitable. On a train, he came up with the idea for Mortimer Mouse. He pitched it to his wife, but she didn't like the idea, so he came up with the name Mickey, which is, in her opinion, more cute. One thing that Richard Scheichel wrote about Walt for Time magazine, and I paraphrase, Walt lived in a studio and ate cans of cold beans. Excuse me. He moved to Los Angeles and partnered with his brother Roy, who did the majority of his business for him. He began to prosper modestly. His first creation, Oswald the Rabbit, was stolen from him. That opened the door for Mickey Mouse, who became a symbol for America during the Great Depression. When Walt envisioned the reimagination of Snow White, he went completely broke. He went over his budget by 100%. He then had to act out the remaining parts of Snow White to the bank so they would continue their funding. Snow White was first of its kind. It was the first animated cel movie, and it was a hit in the box office, winning 2 Academy Awards. Speaking of Academy Awards, some of his accomplishments are he was nominated to 59 Academy Awards and won 22, which is a record that still stands today. He has films in the Library of Congress, and in 1960 he was memorialized on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He has 2 stars, one being in television and one being for motion pictures. Walt said, "If you can dream it, do it." Walt used to hang out at Griffith Park with his daughters as they would ride the merry-go-round. He would hang out on the park bench and eat peanuts, and that's where he came up with the idea for Disneyland. He wanted a place where children and parents could go and enjoy themselves. His initial idea for Disneyland, he wanted it to be by a studio, but that area was too small, so he acquired 160 acres to make his dreamland a reality. Disneyland was open on July 17th, 1955. People came from all over. I think it was 28,000 people showed up originally, and a lot of them had counterfeit tickets so they could get in. One thing that Stephen Watt wrote about Disney and the Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney and the American Way of Life, he wrote, and I paraphrase, "The Disney Empire excluded Walt's dream. The movie studio had 5 different production houses, 3 of them being ABC, ESPN, and the Disney Channel. Many Disneylands sprouted about the world. 2 of them were in Paris and Tokyo, and also Shanghai. Disney cruise ships came about. In 1997, the company of Disney did $20 billion in revenue. Stephen Watt considered it the most influential entertainment conglomerate in the world. At the end of Walt's life, he had an x-ray done because he felt ill. They found a lump in his lung because he was a heavy smoker for the majority of his life. Unfortunately, Walt died in December 15th of 1966, a few months prior to him opening the park in Florida. Walt was not cremated, or Walt was not frozen as opposed to the myth of cryogenically frozen. He was cremated and buried in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. And in closing, Walt was a dreamer, a visionary, and an entrepreneur. He realized his dreams as an artist through animation. He gave us the reimagining of fairy tales, live-action films, Mickey Mouse, Snow White, Bambi, and Dumbo. Walt's influences reaches our children, sleeping in blankets, wearing clothes with their favorite characters on them. They might be found wearing Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse ears. We grew up in the Disney generation, and Mr. Disney wished upon a star, and his dreams did come true.